It's happened again. When you look at Neymar's career, in particular his time at PSG, he has had a lot of enemies. Perhaps that word's a bit strong, but he's had a lot of detractors or a lot of forces that are working against him. Some of them are brought upon himself through his decisions off of the pitch, sure, while others are just the media and fandom taking things too far when overanalyzing his every move. However, at this point, if you were to point to one force that has done its absolute best to derail Neymar's time at PSG and in turn his career, you could point to one thing. One entity that has affected his career negatively more than any other entity. A traitor within his own camp, really, with that being his ankle. Yes, his battles with the media and his adductor injuries have given him a good fight, but it's his right foot and right ankle that have done the most to keep Neymar away from football. Even with his 2 metatarsal fractures, his ankle was injured in the process as well, and has reached the point where he has to sacrifice yet another half a season in order to get ahead of his injury. And it's a shame, isn't it? Neymar was in fine form prior to the World Cup, but since the return, he has looked like a player who is struggling to stay fit and at the peak of his powers. That is until he played a massive role in PSG's 4-3 comeback win over Lille, only for that ankle to bring him down once again, falling into the same misfortune as if it's Groundhog Day. Come the winter, Neymar will get an injury and likely be out for many months, rinse and repeat. Beyond all of the brilliance he has provided PSG, the annual injury and the amount of matches missed are threatening to overshadow all of the positives, as he has played less than 50% of Ligue minutes since he signed with PSG almost 6 years ago. Given the sheer amount of matches he has missed and the consistency of his injuries, is this just the new normal with Neymar? What once was looked at as bad luck has now seemingly become what we have to accept. Hey guys, before we get into this, I'm Adrian and thanks for checking out Rabona TV. If you find yourself enjoying the content, be sure to subscribe for more from us here. Other than that, let's go. Neymar had a ferocious start to the season. In fact, coupled with the form of his teammates, he was a big reason as to why PSG were looking like a competitive outfit at the start of the 2022-23 campaign, why brilliant wordsmiths such as myself referred to them as serious. I know. That brilliant analysis aside, PSG looked serious indeed under Galtier, and the reason why I use that word to describe them is because PSG have at times resembled an unserious outfit when it comes to not just the fact that they lose matches in the Champions League, of course not, as anyone could lose those matches, but it's the manner in which they do so. They dominate domestically, but when faced with the elite sides in Europe, they find a way to lose. They find a way to collapse. At the beginning of the season, they looked ruthless under a very, very serious individual such as Christophe Galtier. And after there were so many questions over the summer as to whether Neymar would even be around anymore, it was incredible to see how he was lighting up Ligue 1 as if it was his playground, as if he was back to his best for the Parisians after what felt like a long period of time where people were questioning whether he was capable of reaching those kinds of levels again. If you include the Trophée des Champions victory over Nantes to kick off the season, Neymar had perhaps the best start to the season of anyone in the top 5 leagues when it came to both his goals and assists. In the first 6 matches of the season, he scored 9 and provided 6 assists. That's 15 goal contributions in just 6 matches, a ridiculous feat. And yes, PSG began to run into some issues in the fall, some of them self-inflicted, or perhaps the newspaper is just determined to derail the club as much as possible, publishing stories about Mbappe wanting to leave. That was an interesting moment. Still blurry there, despite Mbappe's public stance. And for what it's worth, and this is a bit of a tangent here, but for what it's worth, it really seems now that Mbappe feels as though he's the main man at PSG, that he has eclipsed his teammates for sure at this point. And there aren't those issues there anymore, it seems. But anyways, as I was saying, the media published stories about Mbappe wanting to leave, as well as how Mbappe was jealous of the relationship that Neymar and Messi have. They even published stories about Neymar being out of the club at the end of the season, etc., etc. All the while, PSG rolled on with Neymar and co providing a ton of goals, as the Brazilian went into the World Cup break having scored in 4 out of his final 5 matches, and assisting twice in that span as well. In all, Neymar went into the World Cup break with 15 goals and 11 assists from 20 matches, an incredible 26 goal contributions from just 20 appearances. That's absolutely nothing to sneeze at. With Neymar, ever since he joined PSG, he has been one of those players where you find yourself wincing every time he goes down and holds that right leg of his. Of course, there is some deception that you have to sort through along the way with him, but for the most part, for anyone who is a PSG or Brazil supporter, when he goes down holding that right leg or ankle, you begin to worry. As mentioned, he went into the World Cup in spectacular form and he looked quite decent in Brazil's opening match against Serbia. That is, until he went down in the 80th minute, holding his right ankle. The shots of him hobbling off of the pitch with his ankle already the size of a mature grapefruit, as opposed to an immature one, will have sent Brazilians down a PTSD spiral, including Neymar, who has dealt with untimely injuries during a World Cup in the past. In fact, this new addition, but not exactly a new ankle injury for Neymar, but when it happened, he too feared for his tournament. Quote, "I was thinking of a million different things. I was afraid of not being able to play in this World Cup again, but I had all the support of my friends and family, and I tried to find strength where I could not find it. I did not feel any pain in my ankle. I think my performance went very well, and I'm very content. But that said, I think we can always improve, and that's what I will try to do." Luckily enough, he made his return against South Korea, playing an integral role in Brazil's win in the round of 16 with a goal and an assist. He then went on to score against Croatia as well. But that would spell the end for Brazil, as they succumbed to the semi-finalists on penalties. Now, of course, there's the physical scar that Neymar will have carried from the World Cup, that being the damage to his ankle. But there is also the mental and emotional wound as well. If you've been watching this channel for a while, or if you keep up with Neymar and the pressure that he receives from his home nation, this World Cup, with Brazil coming in such hot form, will have hurt him a lot, as it felt like it could perhaps be his last, as he said himself, and he won't achieve the dream of winning the World Cup for his country and bring him that much closer to the Ballon d'Or all of us thought that he would have received by now. Just about 3 weeks after Brazil were eliminated by Croatia, Neymar was on the pitch again for PSG, helping them to a 2-1 win before getting himself sent off. The time off would prove to be beneficial for him to recover further, I'm sure, but 8 matches later against Lille, a seemingly innocuous moment ended his season. Like I said in the intro, Neymar's ankle has essentially become a villain in the story of his career. While his adductor strains have held him back in the past, those being the muscles on the inside of the thigh, his lengthiest layoffs through the years have been down to his ankle issue, namely his right ankle and all of the injuries he has sustained in that surrounding area. In fact, the first big injury of his career came in his first season with Barcelona, the 2013-14 season, in which an ankle injury in January of 2014 saw him miss 10 matches. He then sprained his ankle again in August of that same year, but was mostly in the clear when it came to his right foot and ankle until going to Paris. The first big injury layoff he had was thanks to a metatarsal fracture in February of 2018, which also damaged the ligaments in his ankle. He was out from February until May, returning in time to feature for Brazil at the 2018 World Cup, but missing the final 16 matches of that same season for PSG. 11 months later, so January of 2019, and Neymar suffers the same injury, the 5th metatarsal once again on his right foot. From January 24th to April 19th, Neymar was on the sidelines, this time missing 18 matches, but returning at the end of the season to make 5 appearances ahead of the 2019 Copa America. Brazil would go on to win that tournament, but not with Neymar in their ranks. Unfortunately for Neymar, after spending 4 months on the sidelines, he would be set for another spell. As in a pre-tournament friendly with Qatar, he would again rupture his ligaments in his right ankle. Now, his adductor issues have never really gone away completely, but the time spent off of the pitch from those injuries has been minimal in comparison to his right ankle and metatarsals. Just going through his injury record from Transfermarkt, he had another ankle problem that sidelined him for 5 matches in December of 2020. Then he had another ankle injury in November of 2021, which saw him miss 12 matches, stretching until February of 2022. And so again, on February 20th, 2023, that innocuous moment that led to further damage of Neymar's right foot reared its ugly head once again, as Neymar will miss the remainder of this season. The official announcement from PSG read, Neymar Jr. has sustained a number of instances of instability in his right ankle in recent years. Following his latest sprain on 20th of February, the Paris Saint-Germain medical staff recommended a ligament repair operation to avoid a major risk of recurrence. All the experts consulted have confirmed confirmed this necessity. The surgery will be performed in the next few days at the Aspetar Hospital in Doha. It will take 3 to 4 months before he can return to training with the team. A shame, really. What's interesting is that PSG had to look to experts outside of the club to get their opinions on the injury and how they should move forward with it. That can be common practice, of course, but most commonly reserved for large, multi-month, serious injuries in players. When you look at the entirety of his career with PSG, the amount of time that he has spent on the sidelines is shocking. When this season comes to an end, in Ligue alone, Neymar will have only featured in 48% of the minutes he has been eligible for since the start of the 2017-18 season. Now, the hope is that, as it said in release from PSG, is that the procedure will ensure that there is far less chance of Neymar re-injuring himself yet again on that right ankle, but there is never a 0% chance. In fact, with more injury comes the risk of re-injury, as we have gone over a few times when discussing guys like Eden Hazard. And Neymar was a perfect example of the injury and re-injury cycle repeating itself. As you compensate, that leads to weaknesses in the muscle or the ligaments, which leads to higher risk of injuring them again, and on it goes. Even with surgery, there's no guarantee that the deal is sealed, especially as a player ages and it becomes even more difficult to recover from these injuries. Look to someone like Zlatan, who despite taking care of himself better than most professionals in sport, he has had recurring issues in his knees throughout his career, just as Neymar has had in his ankle. The hope is that this will bring an end to his injury woes, but there is always a high chance, as players age, that this will continue to come up, or as part of the re-injury cycle, he will start picking up muscle injuries elsewhere as he compensates for his ankle. Or, given how easily he picks up injuries on his right foot, should the surgery not reduce the amount of time he is sidelined for in the future, he will have to change his play style and take players on far less, which would be a horrible shame considering this is Neymar we're talking about. Beating players is what he would do for fun. He's one of the best in the world at that. Hopefully none of this happens. Hopefully the surgery is a massive success and we can get used to having Neymar around more consistently. Allow him to build up his form instead of the stop-start career he has had since the 2017-18 season. When you combine the total days he will have been unavailable to PSG following the surgery, it amounts to 731 days, almost exactly 2 years spent on the sidelines. That's far too much time that we have been robbed of Neymar. So here's hoping that when he comes back, we get to witness the very brilliance that a Neymar at the peak of their powers is capable of, rather than the individual who is trying to reach his top level, but his body won't allow him to do so. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and if you liked it, then be sure to subscribe for more. But other than that, we hope to see you in the next one, hopefully a more positive one. Ciao.